What's good, y'all? This is your boy JPTHEGLOVE74. I'm back with another video. Today we're gonna check out a video by Wrestle with Andy. What if wrestling's greatest missed opportunities? There's been a lot of it, but we're gonna get into this video right here. If this is your first time, if you haven't subscribed, this is your boy JPTHEGLOVE74. Please be sure you subscribe to my channel for more wrestling content, and also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And let's get into this video, y'all. Let's do it.
Sometimes in wrestling, an idea or an opportunity will fall in a booker's lap that seems like it can't help but be a home run. Take the rise of Hulk Hogan in the 80s, Austin versus McMahon in the 90s, or more recently, Cody Rhodes' jump from AEW to WWE earlier this year. That said, sometimes such ideas will end up being a miss. And while this can happen for a variety of reasons, it doesn't change the fact that they represent some of the most frustrating moments to look back on now, as we all wonder what might have been. So join us today then as we take a look at some of the most infamous of them all in What If? Wrestling's Greatest Missed Opportunities.
Let's get in this, people. Let's get in this.
And as always, if we're going to start somewhere, we may as well start right at the top of the list of failed ideas, and that was the storyline which should have been the biggest of all time, the invasion.
Yes, this is supposed to be up there. We all know what happened in the invasion. Apparently all the big name superstars were tied into that Warner's contract, big money deals. So Vince couldn't get the big names, and also of course Vince McMahon wasted a lot of money on that XFL project that failed. So yeah, they were stuck with the mid-card guys. So, but yeah, what if they had Hogan, Goldberg, Nash, Hall, Savage, Luger, the list goes on. Imagine if they were part of this invasion. It would have done one of those. But yeah, like I said, they botched the hell out of it. Stone Cold Steve Austin joined the alliance. Like what? Because they still got five of them now. And then of course all the other guys jumping ship to the alliance. I mean, it was just like a close to heck. It was close to it. It was GG's. So yeah, it was definitely one of the biggest what ifs if it was done right.
Yes, for years, fans had salivated over the prospect of seeing the big two in North American wrestling, WWF and WCW, go at it. Hell, this went back even further than WCW as it happened because prior to that company coming into existence, it had been their original incarnation, Jim Crockett Promotions, which served as the last real holdout of the territory era. Then in the mid-90s, when the Monday Night Wars took the industry mainstream once more, the idea of both sides one day clashing seemed like an even juicier prospect. So imagine fans' excitement when, on the March 26, 2001 episode of Raw, it was announced that the McMahons had bought out their competition, meaning that they now owned everything.
Amen.
And while in reality it was Vince who'd signed on the dotted line for this deal, in an attempt to make things even more interesting, it would be revealed on that same night that in kayfabe, it was actually Shane McMahon who would purchase the company and would be running it going forward, with his intention to build it back to the point where it could beat WWF once again. After that, the McMahons would make plans to start running WCW as its own separate promotion, with Nitro initially supposed to replace Raw on Monday nights, while SmackDown continued on later in the week.
Yep, I know that.
Once plans for this fell through, however, the rival promotion would be largely iced for a couple of months as WWF tried to figure out what to do with it. Then, on the May 28th episode of Raw, fans got a taste of what was to come next as Lance Storm fired the first shot of the invasion when he performed a run-in during a match. And in the weeks after that, other WCW stars such as Hugh Morris and Chuck Palumbo would get involved too, with Shane at this point standing by their sides as he announced his intentions to enact a hostile takeover. Yes, it was what every fan had dreamed of, but that said, pretty quickly, questions began being asked as to where the big stars were.
Yep,
sure, Booker T and Diamond Dallas Page had come over, but while they were great, what fans really wanted to see were the Stings, the Goldbergs, and the Hollywood Hogans.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, with most of these big names having guaranteed contracts with WCW's parent company, Time Warner, there was simply no incentive for them to show up. Sure, Vince McMahon could have paid to buy out these deals and would have likely made it back by the barrel load if he wanted to, but in the end, he decided that upsetting the existing pay structure of his roster would be a headache he didn't need to deal with. For fans, though, this meant that there would be none of the dream matches they wanted. No NWO versus DX, no Steve Austin versus Goldberg, and no Sting versus The Undertaker.
No,
Instead, they'd watch as every week a roster of mostly WCW mid-carders were made to look like they simply couldn't hang with the WWF guys. So trying to salvage things then, the McMahons would add an extreme spark to the mix when they brought in ECW and had them join forces with the Southern Wrestling promotion to form the Alliance. That, however, would fail too, as, while Paul Heyman would be involved, he'd be forced to play second fiddle to the new kayfabe boss of the Philadelphia-based promotion, Stephanie McMahon.
The fact they had Stephanie McMahon, of all people, being the new owner of ECW, it's just a head scratcher. Like, okay, so you got Shane McMahon buying WCW, and now Stephanie McMahon is the new owner of ECW. So basically what it is a rehash of the whole McMahon family rivalry. It's always got to be about the McMahons. Always got to be about them.
Yes, by this point, the whole thing was just turning into another McMahon family drama story.
Yes.
With things eventually getting so bad that, in order to present the Alliance as any meaningful kind of threat, Steve Austin would jump ship and join them in a decision that made zero storyline sense.
It did. Yes, it did make zero sense.
Following this, it was a case of waiting for the whole thing to die, as come that November Survivor Series, things would mercifully be put to rest when Team WWF won a winner-takes-all match to put the Alliance down once and for all. And what makes the whole thing ever more frustrating is, over the next couple of years, all those stars would come in,
yes.
and many of the dream matches would end up happening anyway. In fact, the very night after Survivor Series, Mr. WCW himself, Ric Flair, would show up to start a storyline with Vince McMahon over control of the company. If they'd have just paid the money to bring these people in a little earlier then, it could have been the greatest storyline of all time. But instead, it turned out to be one of the most disappointing. Of course, it wasn't the first time the potential of a big WWF versus WCW showdown had been missed out on, as, just under a decade prior to this, while the whole show was riding high as the face of Vince McMahon's promotion, Mr. WCW himself would jump over to the company with the big gold belt in tow. And this meant that, for the first time ever, arguably the two biggest names in the industry were in the same company at the same time, with the dream match of all dream matches seeming like it would be imminent. Of course, at first at least, it looked as though WWF realized the potential for this too, as immediately they would start teasing the eventual showdown.
They did.
With Ric Flair constantly proclaiming himself to be the real world's champion, and even getting involved in the Hulkster's Survivor Series 1991 showdown with The Undertaker, costing the babyface the WWF title. Just 2 months after that, and Flair would win the 1992 Royal Rumble when he entered himself at number 3 and outlasted everyone else to win the then vacant WWF title for himself.
Yes, I know
so at that point, it seemed like a lock that at WrestleMania 8 that April, it would finally be Hogan versus Flair to see who the undisputed world champion was. Unfortunately, though, in the lead-up to the match, in an attempt to let the two test out different ideas, WWF would put them together on the house show circuit, where it's been suggested that a combination of a lack of chemistry between the two, as well as the fact that their matches didn't sell that many tickets, caused plans to be changed.
And also one of the reasons that both men refused to lose to one another. Like Hogan didn't want to lose to Flair, and Flair did not want to lose to Hogan. And like he said, the tickets didn't draw very well, so they had to pivot. So instead, they put Hogan with Sid Vicious and Flair with Randy Savage. Now the Flair and Randy Savage match is definitely one of the best man matches of all time. And not much to say about Hogan and Sid Vicious. That they main event was I feel like it should have been Savage and Flair the main event, but it is what it is at the end of the day. But it's still a shame that we didn't get this dream match between Flair and Hogan at WrestleMania 8. Thankfully in WCW they did have a chance to recreate that magic there, and they had one of the best matches in WCW history. So it was a win-win either way, but yeah, it's still a shame.
So instead, when WrestleMania 8 came, it would be Hogan versus Sid Justice and Flair versus Randy Savage for the WWF title, robbing fans of the match they all wanted to see. Sure, we would eventually get it in WCW years later, but by that point, both men were past their prime, and we can only be left to wonder about what it might have been like when it should have happened. But then, that's not the only big match fans have missed out on over the years, because, as we alluded to when discussing the Invasion, one of the biggest dream matches of the 90s, The Undertaker versus Sting, never happened either. And this is, in many ways, even a greater shame. As while Flair and Hogan may have been opposites in the ring, Sting and The Undertaker seemed made for each other.
Oh, yeah.
With both sharing mysterious gothic gimmicks while also serving as the cornerstone of their respective promotions. Yes, during the Monday Night Wars, while almost anything seemed possible, you could be sure of two things. The Undertaker was loyal to WWF, and Sting was the face of WCW.
Yep, he was.
So when WCW went under then, fans initially hoped there would be a chance for the two to finally face off. That said, Sting's decision to not sign with WWF and spend the next decade or so working for total non-stop action wrestling instead, those dreams seemed just as out of reach as they ever were. That was until 2014 when, after having remained the last holdout for so long, the Stinger would finally join Vince McMahon's promotion, with it seeming then like, given the fact that the dead man's streak had just ended and he needed something to make his next bout feel like a big deal again, if there was ever going to be a time to pull the trigger on the big dream match, it was now.
And this match, and that match, I know I keep pausing the video, but this match between Taker Sting at WrestleMania 31, I open really good with that, because you really need something since the streak ended at WrestleMania 30. You really need another big marquee match to like at least keep the Undertaker relevant. So a match between Undertaker Sting would have been the right moment. Even though like, you know, it probably won't be the greatest match for all time, because they were kind of like, you know, both past the primes. It'll still be a really good match. Not the greatest match of all time, but still a pretty good match, but a spectacle, so to speak, a spectacle. But then Vince McMahon said that he wasn't really interested in that match. So then, of course, Vince. So then he put the Undertaker with Bray Wyatt and Sting with Triple H. We're not gonna talk about what happened with Sting in WWE, so no, we're not gonna talk about that. But yeah, I feel like Sting and the Undertaker. If there's ever a right moment to pull that trigger, then WrestleMania 31 would have been that right moment.
In the end, though, with the Boss feeling like both men had aged to the point that things couldn't live up to expectations anymore, he decided to go in a different direction instead.
Yep.
With him booking Sting to face Triple H at WrestleMania 31, all while The Undertaker scored a victory over Bray Wyatt. And since then, with The Undertaker seemingly retiring for good, it looks unlikely we'll ever get to see that match. But not every missed in-ring opportunity had such a big build-up to it, as instead, some come and go so quickly it's easy to forget about them. Something which was certainly the case when it came to Stone Cold Steve Austin versus China in 1999.
I remember that.
That's right, when the Attitude Era was at its peak and the Rattlesnake was arguably the biggest star the industry had ever seen, everyone wanted a chance to share the ring with him. And in the lead-up to that August SummerSlam pay-per-view then, this would see the field of challengers include the likes of Triple H, Mick Foley, and Chyna. Yes, by then, Chyna had broken the glass ceiling for women's wrestlers by becoming one of the biggest stars on the roster in her own right, one who would regularly challenge the men. So seeing the potential in putting the two together then, Vince McMahon and Vince Russo would book the ninth wonder of the world to win a #1 contendership match on an episode of Raw during the lead-up to the big show. And at that point, there were even allegedly some plans to have her beat Austin for the title, becoming the first woman to hold a men's world championship in the process. Of course, this didn't end up happening though, as upon some old-timers getting in the ears of the Boss and convincing him that having a woman main event would be a bad idea, McMahon would change plans and go with a triple threat match between the Rattlesnake, Triple H, and Mankind instead. And this would prove to be a crying shame, as while Chyna would end up getting a consolation prize when she became the Intercontinental Champion later that year, she would never rise to the main event spot again.
She never did.
Because less than 12 months later, she'd be gone from the company under controversial circumstances.
Yep.
But it's not just individual matches or storylines that can lead to missed opportunities in wrestling, as sometimes entire characters can be botched so badly that despite seeming like they should have been huge stars, they end up frittering away to nothing. Something that was definitely the case with our next entry, Sean O'Haire. Now, if you're one of the people who stopped watching WWE post-Invasion, then this one might come as a surprise to you. After all, prior to this, wasn't Sean O'Haire basically a tag team jobber? Well, yes, but after branching out into a singles run in 2003, he'd start developing a very unique heel gimmick, which saw him play the role of the Devil's Advocate, someone who first appeared in hype videos telling fans they should fall prey to their worst instincts by doing stuff like cheating on their partners or breaking the law.
And I feel like this gimmick for Sean O'Haire, it could have worked. he was paired with White Piper, and he was feeding with Hulk Hogan, Mr. America. So he was actually doing something with this gimmick right here. I feel like that they could get. I feel like it needed more time. I feel like they should give it more time and more time to develop. But I feel like Sean Hill, he could definitely been like a standout on SmackDown. I feel like he could that Devil's Advocate gimmick could have been beneficial for him. So if they would kept going, but we will never know. We will never know.
Following this, then, he'd start showing up in the arena, getting in the heads of other characters and convincing them to do things they really shouldn't have been doing.
Yep.
So, with all the potential available here, it felt like it was an easy main event gimmick in waiting. One that Vince McMahon could really sink his teeth into, as he had O'Haire wage psychological warfare instead of physical warfare on his roster. In fact, it's all pretty similar to what the likes of Bray Wyatt and Malachi Black would attempt in the years that followed.
True.
That said, while these two would have much greater levels of success, O'Haire's run would pretty much be hobbled when, soon after this, he'd be paired up with Rowdy Roddy Piper, with this partnership making no sense for his character and instantly robbing it of much of its mystique.
Yeah, I can see
The former tag team wrestler would get involved in a motorcycle accident later that year, with this stalling what little momentum he had and contributing towards him being released from his contract in early 2004. Of course, for as great as he should have been, though, Sean O'Haire is far from the only example of a missed character opportunity in the mid-2000s, because not long after his quick rise and fall, another character would be introduced, and that was Mordecai. Portrayed by journeyman wrestler Kevin Thorne,
I remember Mordecai. I remember him.
With fans upon his debut as, decked out in all white, he would present himself as a religious zealot who was dedicated to bringing what he believed to be salvation to the company by absolving it of its past sins. Following this, he would begin racking up wins over undercard performers such as Scotty 2 Hotty and Hardcore Holly, all while building his way up to what many had by then realized was the character's end goal, a match with The Undertaker. Yes, despite already proving he could be a great wrestler when given the chance, The Undertaker had, at this point, been somewhat pigeonholed with his role of taking on the colorful monster of the week.
I did hear about that.
That saw him spend much of the 90s going up against the likes of Giant Gonzalez, King Kong Bundy, and Kama. So with it seeming like Mordecai was tailor-made to be his next big challenger then, the company would begin making early plans to have the two face off at the following year's WrestleMania 21.
Oh my God.
Unfortunately for the Zealot heel though, after finding themselves unimpressed with his overall in-ring performances in the months that followed, WWE would decide to change tactics by dropping Mordecai and sending him back down to developmental. All while the dead man defended his streak against Randy Orton instead.
Thank goodness.
After that, Mordecai would exit the company, eventually returning a couple of years later with an all-new vampire gimmick. That said, the idea of Heaven vs. Hell would be revived a few years later when, at WrestleMania 25, Shawn Michaels, someone who was by then a born-again Christian, would come down from up high, decked out in all white for his match with the Fiend, proving that even if the whole Mordecai character never came to fruition, there was still something great there within it, just waiting to be exploited. But while Mordecai wouldn't be the only character seemingly tailor-made for The Undertaker who would fail to meet expectations, he at least got to debut on TV. The same of which can't be said for Hade Vanson.
Oh, Hade
Vanson. It was on the
Vanson.
December 12th, 2008 episode of SmackDown that a mistake.
I remember seeing vigiliantes of Hade Vanson. I forgot about him. I didn't know who he was at first, but the first time I watched those vigilantes back in the day, I was like, oh. And I saw that he was eventually going to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25, but then the company thought he was too small, so he got released. But and I don't think I saw him wrestle one match on SmackDown. I don't think he wrestled a match, and not that I know of. So, but I mean, it could have been something. It could have been something.
Mysterious stranger seemingly hacked the TV feed and began airing a pirated video message about how the prophecy would soon be realized and the annihilation of some unnamed foe would not be in vain. At the time then, many took this to be a new challenger being set up for The Undertaker, and as it happened, that was correct. That's right. Over the next few weeks, the plan had been for Vanson to continue hacking into the show, with this all leading to him bringing what has since been described as a team of X-Men style mutants to WWE to wage war on the dead man.
X-Men.
Before any of that could happen, though, for reasons that are still unclear to this day, the whole thing was dropped, never to be referenced again. Was Vince McMahon unhappy with the newcomers' promo skills? Did someone just find the idea of mutants in WWE too silly? We may never know.
Probably so.
Given the potential for wackiness there could have been for this one, it's a shame it was another character that was dropped too quickly. But sometimes a character's rise isn't what ends up being the missed opportunity in situations like these. No, sometimes what fans really want to see is the fall, and that was almost the case with John Cena's heel turn.
Yeah, this will stand test time. Probably the greatest what if in wrestling history is where John Cena turned heel. That there was a few occasions where they were going to pull the trigger. The closest they ever got to was in 2012 during Cena's feud with The Rock. Apparently they're eventually gonna have John Cena turn heel on The Rock, and even John Cena said in the interview he bought some new ring gear, he bought some new titles to go with his heel character, and he was ready. He was really ready to turn heel, and John even told fans that he would do whatever he wants, that he would do whatever fans asked him to do, and he was willing to do it. But then Vince got cold feet, and he was really scared. He was really scared that if he turned John Cena heel, the merchandise sales will go down, and fans will probably stop watching it. And I'm just like, now it's understandable because John Cena's match is still one of the highest match in wrestling history. So I can see why they didn't tell him heel. And I know a lot of people respect him now. Like anytime I see John Cena coming to the ring, I barely hear John Cena sucks every single time. So yeah, but it's still a missed opportunity to this day. We never got that heel turn.
In 2011, picture it if you will. Big Match John had just lost to The Miz at WrestleMania after receiving a rock bottom from the Great One, and after that, he would start building up to a grudge bout with The Rock the following year. In the meantime, though, as all of this is happening, a new anti-hero is rising to the forefront in the form of CM Punk, someone who gives fans everything he can't, a cool factor. And this was the point where it almost happened. The heel turn fans had wanted for almost a decade, as initial plans at this time were reportedly to have Cena fall to the dark side so as to play the villain during his match with The Rock at WrestleMania 28, letting Punk step in and take his place as the face of the company. So far would this go, in fact, even get new ring gear made up for the occasion, with the company hoping this would be a Hulk Hogan at Bash of the Beach level moment when it finally happened. Unfortunately, though, none of this would come to pass in the end, as, before it could, Vince McMahon would get cold feet, believing that by turning his top babyface into a villain, he would turn off young children from watching the show. So instead of what could have been a game-changing storyline, Cena and The Rock ended up having a babyface versus babyface match at WrestleMania instead, all while Punk played second fiddle in a bout with Chris Jericho and never got a chance to take wrestling back into the mainstream. Yes, with the amount of lapsed fans who were tuning in because of The Rock, it truly was a golden opportunity to capitalize on the anti-authority appeal of the voice of the voiceless and make wrestling cool again. And the failure to do this alone ultimately makes it one of the company's biggest missed opportunities.
Definitely.
Of course, that wasn't the only big blown storyline around this time, though, as just a year prior,
the Nexus.
Having all the promise in the world, the Nexus had spectacularly crashed and burned.
That
said, it all started blowing up as on the June 7th, 2010 episode of Raw, after a match between John Cena and CM Punk, a class of NXT rookies made up of Wade Barrett, Daniel Bryan, Skip Sheffield, Darren Young, Heath Slater, Justin Gabriel, David Otunga, and Michael Tarver would shock everyone watching when...
Just look at that visual. Just look at that. The first night when the Nexus took over Raw, the first night the Nexus debuted, they tore up the whole wing. They tore up the announce table. They were beating up everybody. Like, they were a force to be reckoned with. Like, this stable could have been one of the greatest stables in wrestling history. Like, they were on a hot streak going to the summer 2010. Like, they were making the company better. They were like printing money. They were bringing the WWE fans back. And so then we thought, hey, we should really put these guys over at SummerSlam. And John Cena was like, nope, You can't see me. Ain't gonna happen. So so then yeah, John Cena pretty much just buried the Nexus, and the Nexus was never the same again. Way better was never the same again. So, but what if the Nexus won at SummerSlam? Just think about that. Just think of the Nexus winning at SummerSlam, and you could build your future main films in blink of an eye if you would have them go over at SummerSlam. That's still a big missed opportunity. That I don't know why Cena did the do you can't see me. So Super Cena, man, Super Cena wins again.
Out of nowhere, they would invade the ringside area, absolutely destroying everyone and everything in their path from there in a moment that immediately gave fans echoes of the NWO storyline from years prior. Then the following week, with fans still reeling, they'd come out to the ring once again to explain their mission statement, that they were there to kick out the old and take their place as the new faces of WWE. So with the rest of the locker room on watch then, the Nexus would continue taking out more established stars on subsequent episodes of Raw, names such as Sheamus, Randy Orton, and John Cena, with this all eventually leading to a big 7-on-7 match at that year's SummerSlam, where Team WWE hoped to send the invading force packing. And of course, with this still being early on in the storyline, most expected Team Nexus to pick up the win that night, further establishing them as a force to be reckoned with as the angle continued on.
And they were eventually going to win.
That, however, is not what happened, because despite at one point taking a DDT onto the concrete floor outside the ring, Big Match John would overcome the odds when he single-handedly defeated both Barrett and Gabriel to win the match, pretty much killing any momentum the heels had in the process.
Yep.
After that, the angle would be dead in the water as, despite limping on for a while yet, no one would ever take the Nexus seriously anymore, especially as they'd already proved they couldn't get the job done when it mattered. Who was to blame here? Well, if you believe Edge and Chris Jericho, each of whom was part of that 7-on-7 match, it was Cena who demanded it end the way it did.
Yep.
So in that sense, maybe it's karma that his aborted heel turn the following year didn't work out. As for our final missed opportunity, though, well, that can't be blamed on anyone in WWE, as when Vince McMahon's limo explosion angle started, the whole thing would be thwarted by forces outside of their control. Yes, it was supposed to be the next big storyline the company was planning for the summer of 2007, one that would see the boss apparently die when his limo blew up on the June 11th episode of Raw, leaving those remaining to figure out who did it, and from there, subsequently fight for control of WWE in a tale worthy of HBO's Succession. Of course, anyone who was watching at the time will know that the very next week on Raw, the whole thing would have to be dropped when Vince himself opened the show, clearly alive and well, to announce the death of Chris Benoit and his family. That's right, with the real-life tragedy which had taken place.
That's why I got canceled because of that.
In poor taste to do the planned funeral of McMahon that night, and so, instead, they aired a 3-hour tribute show to the Rabid Wolverine in its place. Not that you'd ever see this one again, though, because in the days that followed, it would come to light that Benoit himself had been the one who carried out the murders, leading to the company never referencing him on television again. Yes, with so many potential home runs being on this list, some of which should have been era-defining storylines if done correctly, it's hard not to look back and think, what if? Maybe then, we'll just have to take solace in the fact that somewhere out there in another universe, it all went to plan, and it was all just as great as we hoped it would be. Well, guys, what did you think of the video? Let us know.
But yeah, going back to the Nexus angle, Nexus scene. The Nexus was eventually going to win at SummerSlam. Apparently, in the original plans, Wade Bell was supposed to go over at the end, but of course, John Cena nixed the idea at the very last second, and he did say, I think it was like a press conference, I believe. I forgot what it was. A guy asked him a question like, why did he put him over? John Cena basically said that the storyline got too much out of control, and he was just like bummed out. He said it got too much. So then now John Cena did say he regret going over at the same time, but he did say that it got a little too much, and that he just didn't, in my opinion, he just didn't see anything in the Nexus, which is a shame. It's definitely a shame. But yeah, I still believe to this day the Nexus should have gone over at SummerSlam because it could have been one of the best angles the company's ever done, and also will made a lot of future main eventers, in my opinion. So we're gonna just leave it at that. But these grades, what else? These could have been great opportunities, but we will never see the light of day. Never see the light of day. If you like this video, please make sure you hit that like button. What is y'all's grades? What if missed opportunities? Leave your comments down below. Until next time, this is your boy JPTHEGLOVE74. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more wrestling content, and also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I hope you guys have a really great day. God bless y'all, and peace.